And we continue to follow breaking news out of London this morning. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, husband to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, has died. The Duke passed away this morning at Windsor Castle. Prince Philip had been hospitalized several times, of course, in recent years, actually just released from hospital most recently 3 weeks ago after spending 28 days for a number of things. The palace released a statement on Prince Philip's death that reads in part, His Royal Highness passed away peacefully this morning at Windsor Castle. Further announcements will be made in due course. The royal family joined with people around the world in mourning his loss.
The South Korean tanker ship and its captain that were detained by Iran in January have now been freed, after South Korea promised to try and release Iranian funds that have been frozen in South Korean banks because of US sanctions. That's according to a South Korean government source. The tanker was seized in the Strait of Hormuz off Oman by Iranian authorities, who had accused it of polluting the waters with chemicals. A diplomatic emergency arose when, separately, Tehran was demanding that Seoul release $7 billion in frozen funds. 20 crew members except the captain were released in February after a South Korean delegation visited Iran. Both South Korean Foreign Ministry's statement and Iranian state news agencies' report on the ship did not mention the demand for the release of funds.
Tens of thousands of people are being evacuated from the area around a volcano on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent after it began erupting on Friday. The volcano has been spewing smoke and ash across the island. It had been dormant for decades until December 2020, when it began showing signs of activity.
Gosh, watch it!
The eruption ejected smoke kilometers high into the air.
My God!
La Soufrière created an ash cloud so thick it hid the sun. Poor visibility forced airlines to cancel flights to and from St. Vincent.
Now, a day after India conveyed its concerns to the United States of America on the passage of USS John Paul Jones through India's exclusive economic zone, Pentagon has defended the move by calling it, quote-unquote, an innocent passage consistent with international law. Kirby started the response by saying that he will not speak about specific communications with India on this issue. But about the operations in Maldives, he added that it is the responsibility of US to uphold the freedom of navigation and lawful use of the sea recognized in international law. Pentagon equated the freedom operation in India to the operations as well it conducts to challenge China's claims on maritime boundaries.
Disperse immediately or water cannon will be used.
Another night of violence in Belfast, with rioters hurling rocks and shooting fireworks at police. In turn, the police used water cannon on demonstrators for the first time in years. Pro-British Loyalist residents feel increasingly cut off from the UK as Brexit provisions are implemented, with a customs border created between Northern Ireland and the British mainland, even though they are one country. Besides Brexit, there are other pressures on the community. Youth centres have been shut because of COVID restrictions. Northern Ireland's First Minister says criminal gangs are whipping up young people to commit violence. People are still angry about this event last year, which turned into a political scandal. Deputy First Minister Michelle O'Neill and more than 20 other Sinn Féin leaders attended a large funeral, allegedly breaking the government's own rules to tackle coronavirus.
You found then, and do you stand by today, that the manner of death for Mr. Floyd was, as you would call it, homicide?
Yes, I would still classify it as a homicide today. The medical examiner who performed the autopsy on George Floyd after his deadly arrest last year said he stood by his conclusion that the 46-year-old's death was a homicide at the hands of police.
What today remains your opinion as to the cause of death for Mr. Floyd?
So my opinion remains unchanged. It's what I put on the death certificate last June. That's cardiopulmonary arrest complicating law enforcement subdual restraint and neck compression. That was my top line then. It would stay my top line now.
Top U.S. Embassy staffer found hanging in hotel in Kenya. A suicide note was found in the hotel room of a senior U.S. Embassy staffer who was found dead in the Kenyan capital on Wednesday, police have confirmed. Authorities said they are conducting an investigation to ascertain the validity of the note and to confirm whether suicide was the cause of death of the 58-year-old. K24 News in Kenya quoted a police officer at the scene who said the body was found hanging near the room window. He seemed to have died long before the security team arrived there. A spokesperson from the embassy also confirmed the death, but refrained from disclosing the identity of the deceased.
Former Portuguese Prime Minister José Sócrates will have to stand trial on charges of money laundering and forgery. However, in Lisbon on Friday, a judge ruled that more than a dozen other allegations of corruption against him would not proceed because they'd expired under the country's statute of limitations. Speaking outside the court, Sócrates said the judgment vindicated him. The former Prime Minister still stands accused of taking money in return for favours. Judge Ivo Rosa ruled that €1.7 million, much of it in cash, given to Sócrates by a childhood friend who was working for a Portuguese construction company, amounted to an attempt to gain influence over the Prime Minister and to win contracts.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel is set to take power away from the 16 federal states to decide on coronavirus restrictions. A new plan will see the central government take over when infection numbers rise to a certain level. Germany is battling a brutal third wave, and regional decision-making has led to a confusing patchwork approach.
If I want to go shopping in Berlin, I can do that if I get tested beforehand. Here, I can do that right in front of the shopping centre, and the test is for free. The testing bed goes in and out, and the shopping can begin. With these rapid tests, many cities are loosening restrictions. Meanwhile, in other places, new COVID measures are implemented and curfews put in place. Everywhere in the country, the rules are different, leading to confusion for many.
Poverty in Ecuador is soaring. The economy has been battered by COVID-19, a plunge in oil prices, and there's also the domestically unpopular International Monetary Fund loan. A tough task for any new president to turn the country's fortunes around. Leading nearly every poll is left-wing economist Andrés Arauz. The 36-year-old is a protege of former President Rafael Correa and has vowed to return the country to a socialist model. His rival in the runoff election is former finance minister and millionaire banker Guillermo Lasso. The 65-year-old trailed Arauz by 13 points in the February election.
Everybody, there's no need to question authority. Everything on the TV is always true. There's no need to question anything, sir. The government loves you. They're never going to lie to you about anything. The government is your friend. Trust the government. Trust mainstream media. They 100% love you. It'll all be okay. We love you guys. To do with what's actually happening. You shut the You shut the up. You shut the Dude, hey, but you've been psychologically, you're literally been silent. Wow. Okay, are you happy now? Are you happy now? So a guy just threw his bike at the window, and